The Seal sky hung heavy with clouds, a gray curtain that seemed to press down on Kim Taehyung as he trudged toward the university hospital. His third year at Seal National University's medical program was a blur of sleepless nights, endless flashcards, and the constant hum of fluorescent lights in lecture halls. At 21, Taehyung's life felt like a script written by someone else, each line memorized, but never truly his. His backpack sagged against his shoulders, stuffed with textbooks on biochemistry and anatomy, their weight, a metaphor for the expectations that entered him to a path he hadn't chosen. The Kim family lived in a sleek, modern apartment in Gangnam, a testament to the success of his parents, Dr. Kim Suk-in and Dr. Kim Hana. Both were renowned physicians, Suk-in a cardiologist with a reputation for precision, Hana a pediatric surgeon whose name graced medical journals. Their home was a shrine to achievement, framed degrees on the walls, polished furniture, and a sterile cleanliness that mirrored the hospital wards they ruled. Taehyung, their eldest son, was expected to inherit this legacy, to carve his name into the same stone of medical excellence. But every step toward that future felt like a betrayal of the dreams he buried deep inside. Taehyung pushed open the glass doors of the hospital, the antiseptic smell hitting him like a wave. His white coat hung loosely on his frame, the embroidered name Kim Taehyung, a badge he wore but didn't feel. He was early for his clinical rotation, as always. Punctuality was one of the many rules his parents had drilled into him since childhood. A doctor is never late, his father would say, his voice sharp as a scalpel. You carry lives in your hands, Taehyung. There's no room for error. As he navigated the bustling corridors, nurses and residents nodding at him with professional courtesy, Taehyung's mind wandered. He didn't see the charts or the patients. He saw light and shadow, moments captured in fleeting frames. He imagined himself somewhere else, not here, not in this sterile labyrinth, but in a world where he could chase beauty, freeze time, tell stories through images. But those thoughts were dangerous, and he shoved them down, locking them away where they couldn't hurt him. At home, the evening unfolded with the same predictable rhythm. Dinner was a formal affair, the dining table set with precision, as if every meal were a surgical procedure. Suk-in sat at the head, his posture rigid, his eyes scanning Taehyung like a diagnostic tool. Hana sat opposite, her expression softer but no less expectant. Jungkook, Taehyung's 17-year-old brother, slouched in his chair, his phone buzzing with notifications from his gaming streams. The contrast between the brothers was stark. Jungkook's carefree laughter filled the room, while Taehyung's silence was a heavy presence. Taehyung, Suk-in began, his voice cutting through the clink of chopsticks. How was your rotation today? Did you observe the bypass procedure? Taehyung nodded, his throat tight. Yes, about it was informative. The surgeon walked us through the coronary artery graft. Good, Suk-in said, though his tone held no warmth. You need to absorb every detail. Medicine isn't just a career. It's a calling. You are the eldest, Taehyung. The Kim name rests on you. Taehyung's fingers tightened around his chopsticks, the wood digging into his palm. He wanted to scream that he didn't want the Kim name, not like this, but he swallowed the words, as he always did. Yes, he murmured, his voice flat. Hana glanced at him, her eyes flickering with something that might have been concern, but quickly hardened into resolve. You were doing well, Taehyung. Your professors speak highly of you. Just keep focused. Third year is critical. You can't afford distractions. Distractions. The word stung, a reminder of the dreams he wasn't allowed to have. Taehyung's gaze drifted to Jungkook, who was scrolling through his phone, oblivious to the weight of the conversation. Jungkook, with his tousled hair and easy grin, was free in a way Taehyung could never be. Their parents had never pressured Jungkook to follow their path. When he announced at 15 that he wanted to be a professional gamer, Suk-in had laughed, actually laughed and said, as long as you were the best at it, Jungkook. Hana had bought him a top-tier gaming the next week. Taehyung had watched, silent, as his brother's dreams were nurtured while his own were suffocated. Jungkook, Hana said now, her voice light, how's your streaming going? Did you hit that subscriber milestone? Jungkook grinned, his eyes sparkling. Almost, Mom, I am at 9,800 subs. Should hit 10,000 by next week, if I keep up the late-night streams. That's my boy, Suk-in said, a rare smile breaking his stern demeanor. You've got talent, Jungkook. Keep pushing. Taehyung's chest tightened. He loved Jungkook, loved his brother's infectious energy, his unapologetic pursuit of what made him happy, but every word of praise for Jungkook felt like a blade twisting in Taehyung's heart. Why was Jungkook allowed to chase his dreams, while Taehyung was chained to a future he didn't want? Did his parents love him less? The thought gnawed at him, a quiet poison that had grown over years. After dinner, Taehyung retreated to his room, a small sanctuary in the otherwise pristine apartment. His bed was neatly made, his desk cluttered with medical texts and notes. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the wall, where a single Polaroid was taped, a blurry shot of a Seoul sunset, the only remnant of a time when he dared to dream of something else. He'd taken it years ago, before his parents had made it clear that photography was a hobby for children, not a career for the Kim here. He didn't cry. Taehyung hadn't cried in years, not since he'd learned that tears were a luxury he couldn't afford. Instead, he let the pain settle into his bones, a familiar ache that kept him company in the silence. He thought about talking to Jungkook, about confessing the weight he carried, but the words never came. Jungkook idolized him, looked up to him as the perfect Hyung. How could Taehyung burden him with the truths? A knock on the door jolted him from his thoughts. Jungkook poked his head in, his expression bright. Hyung, you wanna play a round of Overwatch with Met? I need a second player for my stream tonight. Taehyung forced a smile, though it felt like a mask made later. Cook, got some studying to do. Jungkook's face fell, but he nodded. Okay, Hyung, you are always studying though. You gotta take a break sometime. Years. Yee, Taehyung said softly, the lie bitter on his tongue. Sometime. Jungkook lingered for a moment as if sensing something was wrong, but then he shrugged and disappeared down the hall. Taehyung listened to the sound of his brother's laughter echoing from the living room, a sound that felt like it belonged to another world. The next morning, Taehyung stood in the hospital's lecture hall, listening to a professor drone on about pathophysiology. His classmates scribbled notes, their faces a mix of exhaustion and determination. Taehyung's pen moved mechanically, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought about the way his father's eyes lit up when he talked about medicine, the way his mother's voice softened when she spoke to Jungkook. He wondered what it would feel like to be seen not as the Kim here, but as Taehyung. During a break, he slipped into the hospital courtyard, the air crisp with the promise of autumn. He sat on a bench, watching leaves drift to the ground, their freedom a quiet mockery of his own life. His phone buzzed, a text from his mother. Hana, don't forget, Taehyung, you have a meeting with Dr. Park tomorrow about your residency options. This is important. Taehyung stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the reply button. He wanted to type something real, something raw, like I don't want this or why can't I choose it, but instead he typed, yes mother. I'll be there. He slipped the phone back into his pocket and leaned his head against the bench, closing his eyes. The courtyard was quiet, save for the distant hum of the city. For a moment, he let himself imagine a different life, one where he wasn't Kim Taehyung, the doctor's son, but just Taehyung, a boy with dreams too big for the box his parents had built around him. That evening at dinner, the tension was palpable. Sukun was in a full mood, his fork tapping against his plate as he spoke. I heard from Dr. Lee today, he said, his eyes fixed on Taehyung. He said you were distracted during rounds. Is that true? Taehyung's heart sank. He'd been distracted. Yes, but only because he'd overheard a patient talking about a trip to Jeju Island, and for a fleeting moment, he'd imagined capturing the island's cliffs and waves in a photograph. I was listening, father. There's no just in medicine. Sukun interrupted, his voice cold. You are not a child anymore, Taehyung. You can't afford to daydream. Lives depend on you. Hannah reached out, touching Sukin's arm. He's young, Sukun. He's still learning. He's 21. Sukun snapped. When I was his age, I was already assisting in surgeries. He needs to grow up. Taehyung's jaw clenched, the familiar sting of his father's words cutting deeper than usual. He glanced at Jungkook, who was staring at his plate, unusually quiet. For once, their parents' focus wasn't on Jungkook's achievements, and Taehyung wondered if his brother felt the weight of this moment too. Jungkook, Hannah said, breaking the silence, why don't you tell us about your new gaming setups? You mentioned something about a sponsorships. Jungkook perked up, launching into a story about a company that wanted to sponsor his streams. Taehyung listened, his food untouched, as his brother's voice filled the room with excitement. He wanted to be happy for Jungkook, but the contrast was unbearable. Why was Jungkook's passion celebrated, while Taehyung's was dismissed as a childish whim? Later that night, Taehyung lay awake, the ceiling of his room a blank canvas for his thoughts. He thought about his parents, about the way they looked at him not with love, but with expectation. He thought about Jungkook, who loved him but couldn't see the cracks in his facade, and he thought about the dreams he'd buried, the ones that whispered to him in the quiet moments begging to be set free. As he drifted toward sleep, a sound broke the silence, a faint rustle from the hallway. Taehyung sat up, his heart pounding. He crept to his door and opened it a crack, peering into the dim light. There, in the shadows, was a figure small, hesitant, holding something Taehyung couldn't quite make out. Was it Jungkook, or someone else? The figure moved, disappearing around the corner, leaving behind a single sheet of paper on the floor. Taehyung's breath caught as he picked it up, his fingers trembling. In the faint glow of his phone, he saw a sketch, a rote, pencil-drawn image of a boy standing under a sky full of stars, his face unmistakably Taehyung's. At the bottom, in Jungkook's messy handwriting, were the words, Hyung, you were more than this. Taehyung's heart raced. How did Jungkook know? Had he seen through the mask Taehyung wore so carefully, and why had he left this here, in the dead of night? The questions swirled, unanswered, as Taehyung clutched the paper to his chest, the mystery of his brother's actions pulling him deeper into the shadows of his own heart. To be continued.